Today is Tuesday, December 26th. We'll tell you which states are dealing with a winter storm just as people start to travel home from the holidays. Also, we have updates about the Middle East, from President Biden ordering airstrikes to Israel's prime minister visiting Gaza to Bethlehem canceling Christmas festivities. Plus, a warning about fake Ozempic actually sold at pharmacies, which movie came out on top for Christmas weekend, and all about Kwanzaa as celebrations begin today. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, parts of the U.S. are dealing with a pretty significant winter storm, which could impact post-holiday travel. Several states in the Plains and Upper Midwest have been facing blizzard conditions, like heavy snow, freezing rain, and strong winds, all of which are expected to continue today. This is happening right in the middle of the country, from Kansas and Colorado up to the Dakotas. And in all of those states, there have been several crashes, as well as some flight delays and cancellations. All that said, most of the U.S. experienced a snowless, unusually warm Christmas Day. And it should stay that way today, making it easier for most people to get where they need to go. Most of the flight cancellations and delays over the weekend were due to dense fog in Chicago, since it kept planes from landing. But that issue is now cleared up too. Of course, some of the busiest travel days are still ahead. Overall, 115 million Americans have been expected to travel at least 50 miles from home between this past Saturday and this coming Sunday. And really, if you plan to travel anytime between now and New Year's Day, experts say it's best to leave yourself a little extra time for the unexpected. The U.S. military spent Christmas night retaliating against militants for an attack that hurt 3 American service members. The U.S. troops were targeted at an airbase in northern Iraq, and now one of them is in critical condition. An Iranian-backed militia known as the Hezbollah Brigades claimed credit for the attack. And with that, President Biden ordered airstrikes on multiple facilities used by the group and its affiliates. The U.S. military says all of the facilities were destroyed and militants were likely killed. But there are no signs that any civilians were impacted. This all comes after months of escalating threats and actions against American forces in the Middle East, ever since Hamas's attack on Israel in October, which sparked the war in Gaza. Iranian-backed militias oppose the war and hold the U.S. partly responsible, so they have been carrying out dozens of attacks on American bases and on commercial and military vessels through a critical shipping point in the Red Sea. It's not clear at this point if the latest American retaliation will actually deter any future action against U.S. forces or interests, but the U.S. military says the U.S. is fully prepared to do even more to protect Americans and American facilities as needed. Today, one of the Israeli prime minister's closest allies is in the U.S., ready to speak about the next phase of Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. The Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs is expected to meet with officials from the White House, State Department, and Congress. Axios cites one American official who says the main issue of discussion will be how to wrap things up. The U.S. has already been talking about Israel scaling down the war and transitioning to a low-intensity operation soon. But there are no signs of that happening yet. Just over the weekend, hundreds more casualties were reported in the Gaza Strip. The Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says the death toll across Gaza has reached nearly 21,000. And the already dire humanitarian conditions continue to worsen, even though more aid trucks started coming into Gaza over the weekend. Then, when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a rare visit to troops in northern Gaza yesterday, he spoke about fighting until victory, with victory including destroying Hamas, demilitarizing Gaza, and de-radicalizing, quote, the whole of Palestinian society. Netanyahu said the war is not close to being finished and even promised to expand the operation. It's possible that expansion has already gone beyond Gaza. Iran says an Israeli airstrike in Syria killed a senior Iranian military commander, and now Iranian-backed militants are calling it an assassination that Israel will pay a price for. So far, no comment from Israel on that one. To be continued. As you might imagine, Christmas in the Middle East felt very different this year from usual. Normally, the city of Bethlehem is full of visitors since Christian tradition says Jesus was born there 2,000 years ago. But local leaders scaled back the festivities this year in solidarity with the Palestinian people as the war continues in Gaza. So, decorations were removed, parades and religious celebrations were canceled, and there was no traditional Christmas tree in Manger Square. Even many church services were largely empty. Elsewhere in the world, Christmas went on as usual, but even then, the war overshadowed a lot of the celebrations. At the Vatican, Pope Francis called for an end to conflicts in Gaza, Ukraine, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. He also defended the rights of migrants around the world. And above all else, the Pope said the real message of Christmas was peace and love. More news is still coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. It's that time of year where maybe you've gotten off track from your typical habits that keep you feeling your best. But in my experience, having an easy, healthy habit first thing in the morning goes a long way, even if other things fall away. AG1 really makes me feel like I'm setting my body up for success for the whole day. I drink AG1 in the morning before I eat anything else. It's hydrating and nourishing. And since I've been drinking AG1, I've noticed improved digestion and even support for mental clarity. Just one scoop mixed with water gives me the comprehensive foundation nutrition I need with 75 high-quality vitamins, probiotics, and whole food-sourced ingredients. And each one of those servings costs less than $3 a day, which is not a lot when you compare it to taking a bunch of individual supplements that can really add up. So if you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. Okay, now back to the news. Christmas may be over, but Kwanzaa is just beginning. Kwanzaa is an annual week-long non-religious holiday that celebrates African American culture. It starts today and ends on January 1st. There are daily ceremonies with food, decorations, music, and other cultural objects. And there's a feast on the 6th night called the Karamu. Each day is dedicated to a specific principle, marked by lighting a new candle on the Kinara. Translated, the principles are unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. Thousands of Americans who have been convicted of drug offenses got a gift from President Biden this holiday season. The president decided to pardon another round of people who were convicted under federal law of using or possessing marijuana. That basically means criminal records are being wiped clean, helping people overcome obstacles they face trying to rent a home or find a job. Though no one was actually released from prison because of this action. So many advocates are demanding Biden do more. This expands on an executive order from last year, when thousands of other minor drug offenders were pardoned. To be clear, Biden's order does not cover people who have been convicted on the state level, since he doesn't have that authority. And the vast majority of people who have been convicted for cannabis are at the state level. So Biden has also urged governors to take similar steps to erase marijuana convictions. Remember, 24 states in Washington, D.C. have legalized cannabis for recreational use, but it's still illegal at the federal level and in dozens of other states. Federal officials have a new warning about popular diabetes and weight loss medications. The FDA says thousands of counterfeit versions of Ozempic injections have been discovered in the legitimate supply chain. Apparently, fraudsters sold them to pharmacies by pretending they were medical wholesaler employees. They have been seized, but regulators say some fake products could still be in circulation. So far, the FDA has reported 5 instances of people getting sick from the counterfeits, but thankfully, none of the sicknesses are serious. Still, the FDA wants everyone from patients to pharmacies to wholesalers to check their product labels and report anything suspicious. The FDA has examples online of both counterfeits and authentic products, so you can spot the fakes. You can find that link in today's episode notes. Another big data breach is impacting an American wireless phone carrier. This time, the target was prepaid mobile carrier Mint Mobile. Customers were notified over the weekend that their information may have been stolen, information like names, phone numbers, email addresses, and more. The company clarified hackers did not get any credit card info, but they did get SIM information. So there's some concern this breach could lead to SIM swap attacks, which essentially lets hackers take over the victim's phone number. Mint Mobile faced a similar hack back in 2021, and bigger companies like T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon have all dealt with breaches this year. They have all since been resolved, including this latest one with Mint Mobile. Mint says it's now partnering with independent security experts to avoid a repeat in the future. By the way, this comes just a week after another 36 million Xfinity customers were notified about another hack. The cable and internet company says hackers may have accessed names, contact info, birthdays, the last 4 digits of customer social security numbers, and their secret questions and answers. Xfinity says it has also since patched this security hole, and it's asking customers to reset their passwords and use multi-factor authentication. All right, as always, the holiday weekend was full of new releases at the movie theaters. For example, the newest Aquaman movie, a new musical adaptation of The Color Purple, the racing thriller Ferrari, a family cartoon Migration, the rom-com Anyone But You, the wrestling drama The Iron Claw, and more. Still, the box office did not bring in quite as much money as last Christmas, and none of the movies came even close to the big holiday earners of the past, like Avatar and Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Of all of this year's offerings, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom seems to have come out on top, though it did benefit from coming out on Friday instead of Christmas Day. A lot more people are expected to pack into theaters this week ahead of New Year's Eve. So expect a late end-of-year rally for Hollywood, but what's expected to be a below-average box office in 2024. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Castle Flex. I've always experienced the benefits of stretching since I grew up dancing, then later have enjoyed yoga, but I'm now realizing that the typical stretches don't always cut it. And using bands and ropes might not actually pull your toes down and back the way a stretch therapist does it. Well, enter the Castle Flex. When I use it, my entire body feels so much better the same day, and the benefits only increase the more consistent I am with it. In fact, my husband and I both use the Castle Flex now, and we're not alone. With 40,000 customers and an average review rating of 4.9 stars, no wonder they have less than a 1% return rate. Even professional athletes use this. Plus, Castle Flex is now HSA, FSA eligible, which is especially helpful right now if you have extra funds that are use it or lose it by the end of the year. So check it out at castleflex.com. That's Castle Flex, F-L-E-X-X with 2 X's. And be sure to use our code NEWS12 for 10% off. Again, go to castleflex.com and use the code NEWS12 to get 10% off. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, who was the last U.S. president with facial hair? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. Simply sign up to get it at thenewsworthy.com/email or find the link in today's episode notes. As for last week's trivia question, what is the highest grossing Christmas movie of all time? The answer is Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. Of course, there have been a lot of Grinches over the years, ever since Dr. Seuss originally came out with the story How the Grinch Stole Christmas back in 1957. But the version we're talking about is the one that came out in 2018. It has the same plot as all the others, a cynical grump on a mission to steal Christmas, only to have his heart changed by a young girl's holiday spirit. But this one is animated. Benedict Cumberbatch voiced the iconic character, and it ended up bringing in nearly $527 million worldwide. As for the other highest-grossing Christmas movies, the top 5 includes Home Alone 1 and 2, and the Jim Carrey version of The Grinch that came out in 2000. Well, thank you so much for listening and for sharing the show. We'll be back with another news roundup for you tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.